Hello, this is Jack here with You Don't Know Jack's Music podcast, sponsored by Gentle Peeps Creative Studios, which is what I run all my business through. And today I'm here talking a little bit with guitars, and I'm going to be talking with Nick Morrison. Now, Nick, did I say it right? Morrison?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So Morrison is the Guitar Dojo. Is that right? The Guitar Dojo?
Yeah, guitardojo.ca.
Okay.
It just happens because I'm in Canada, so I've got a .ca extension. I mean, we're worldwide, but yeah, teach guitar. Specifically, I help intermediate guitar players get better at guitar
Right.
without having to get bogged down with theory and jargon and kind of all the nonsense that most players kind of get stuck in. You as a beginner, you get going, you're excited and you're learning stuff, and then you kind of hit a wall as you realize how much stuff there is to learn. And a lot of players I've found over the years kind of get to that point and go, I don't know what to do.
Right.
So they just resort to maybe learning other people's songs or whatever, which is great. But if you want to write your own music or get better at improvising, that kind of stuff, that's what I'm here for.
All right. So bear with me. I'm trying to fix my mics and making sure that everything's
Yeah,
good.
whatever you got to
As
do.
I told you beforehand, I just moved to Virginia, so I got a new microphone, new office. So I'm still setting up everything the way I want it. Hence, there's nothing behind me. It's a blank wall.
Mm.
Um, but so what I loved was one of the things I looked at is that you're actually teaching people some different kind of skills. It's not like you're going to go and me personally, I can't play the guitar. I don't know anything about the guitar, but one of my boys loves the guitar. He plays it. Actually,
Nice.
two of them play it. And so they kind of, I think they need to go in there and check out what you're saying because you're trying to teach some easier methods. If I watch the video correctly, then
Yeah.
your normal learning like B, C, D, A, you're like learning, but is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely merits, and I think there comes a point when you're learning guitar where it's important to delve into. Let's learn all the notes. Let's learn some theory. Let's learn modes and harmonic movement and chord assessments and these sorts of things to kind of figure out what's going on a deeper level. But what I find for most guys is that, or most players, let's say, but what I find for most people is that they don't necessarily want to do that. They're not interested in writing an academic paper or
Right.
analyzing music or arranging music for orchestras or stuff. So there's really no need for that level of understanding in depth. I can teach it, like I'm educated in music. I have a degree,
Right. I saw
but
that.
it's not something that's prevalent for every single player. And I really feel like, I mean, I've been playing over 30 years at this point,
Yeah.
professionally for 20, and I've been teaching for most of that 20 years as well. And time and time and time again, I have students that either have been with other teachers or have gone on for me to be with other teachers, because I've moved around a lot.
Right.
And I've stayed in touch with a lot of my students, and one of the things that I constantly hear is like, yeah, it's I really miss getting get my hands dirty, playing music and having fun. I don't want to sit and memorize scales and memorize notes and whatever else. There's a time and a place for it. And I really feel like there's kind of two different schools of thought, right? There are the guys that are really, really interested in theory and harmony and knowing all of the stuff about it. But those guys are going to go and find that stuff anyway.
Right.
And if they want to get it from me, then I will be more than happy to teach it. But the other half, and I actually think it's more like a 60-40 or maybe like an 80-20.
Mm-hmm.
um, but the other half are just really interested in strumming on the campfire with their brother, their uncle, their best friends or whatever, or
Right.
getting in a band and playing on the weekend with their buddies.
Yeah.
And that's who I service, and that's
So
what
is
we
this
do.
like people who like I'm okay? I got a guitar upstairs. I'm going to go, and I know that if I push some strings and I hit, is that where you start at, or are you starting to have people a little more?
I specifically tailor most of my stuff for intermediate players and
Yeah.
above, because it's really difficult via Skype or Zoom, or even video lessons with YouTube. Or I actually have my own guitar app as well. But it's
Okay.
really difficult just via video to teach really all of the beginner basics.
Right.
So generally, I kind of say, yeah, I work with intermediate guitar players, but really that means somebody that's got enough grasp. They probably have, three, four, five chords under their belt. Maybe they can play a couple tunes, and they can kind of get through a few things. And then, okay, cool. Let's take you now to the next level from there.
I like that. So who?
Yeah.
So who actually played the guitar in Back to the Future? Who did that solo?
Oh yeah, guy named Tim May.
What's his
Yeah,
name?
Tim May.
Tim May.
Um, yeah, very very cool. He's a studio musician. Now, of course, I got to check now to make sure I actually have it right.
I
But yeah, he was a studio
threw that one at
musician.
you.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, a lot of these times what I do is I end up making these videos. You do research videos like that. I'll do
Uh-huh.
research and I put it all together and I script it out. And once I make it and edit it and put it up, I kind of forget about it.
Right.
But yeah, so his let's just take a quick peek to make sure I actually have that
So
right.
that's on Insta. So that's on your Instagram, and it's kind of, it's something that people like shoot Instagram. They're looking through Instagram. They're like, oh, I want to know that. So that's a cool fact to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on YouTube as well. I've got it. I've got
Right.
the way I'm kind of doing things. YouTube is really the hub. That's
Okay.
the main place where all of the videos wind up. But then, of course, they get cut up and pieced into different pieces for Twitter, for Instagram, for Facebook, so on and so forth. And then, of course, the app there is a section of the app that's free, so
Mhm.
that'll have YouTube videos in it, but it's actually a paid subscription, and you can get in, and all of that content is exclusive to the app. So, but yeah,
So
let's
your
see.
YouTube is Samurai Fingers.
Samurai Fingers, yeah, youtube.com/Samurai Fingers.
I'll put
Yeah,
I'll
Tim.
put all the links below for all your stuff too.
Beautiful, yeah. But yeah, Tim May, and he was a session guitarist out of LA. Performed with a whole bunch of different, like he did like Tina Turner, Diana Ross. He played, I'm gonna say Toto, but that's not correct because that would have been Steve Lukather because he was a full-time member. But
Mhm.
he worked with Steve Lukather a lot on different sessions and different work. It's a tight group when you get to that sort of level of player. There's really only 3 or 4 guys that basically get all the work, you know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was really cool because he was never credited in the movie, right?
Oh,
And of course, as a
I'm
kid, you
sure.
watch it and you're just like, "Oh, Marty McFly is playing guitar."
I think Michael J. Fox can play. I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he did. He actually did a really good job. Like they taught him, the bass player,
Right.
whose name now I forget. He actually was a GIT instructor. So in Hollywood, they've got the Guitar Institute of Technology, they call it.
Right.
So he was actually a guitar teacher there. So he actually sat down and taught Michael J. Fox the finger movements, the hand movements, so he could mime through the song, so that they could cut to his hands actually playing,
Yeah. So it
quote
looked good.
unquote.
It didn't look fake. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked good, right?
You don't want
Not
don't
one
want
of
it to look
these
fake.
things where they're moving their hand up and down the neck with the
Not if
fingers
you
not
saw me
moving.
playing air guitar.
Yeah.
So horrible. Yes.
Hmm.
So some of the questions I have, I know you have questions on your podcast thing that it says ask these questions because you know them, and these are all great.
Sure.
I may ask you, but I like throwing in some different kind of questions.
To be honest, I set that up so long ago, I don't even remember what they are.
Oh, nice. One of them was about you're living in Japan.
Oh yeah,
You lived in Japan.
yeah. I lived in Japan for about 5 years,
Nice.
sort of mid 2000s to about 2010, and lived and worked over there. Played guitar, did session work, taught some English, which is kind of how most people end up going over there
Oh, really?
and what they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you teach it? I guess you have to know some Japanese to be able to teach some English.
Um,
I think.
you'd think. I actually went over. I didn't speak a lick of Japanese.
Right.
Which, in retrospect, I look at it, I'm like, man, that was dumb. Um, but it throws you into the deep end and really forces you to learn on the fly. When you're submerged in another culture and another language, and you can't. I mean, you have to rely on hand signals a lot, and I always had a pad of paper and a pen with me because this is before the days of like smartphones, if you can imagine, or if you can, I'm sure you can. But
Oh yeah, I'm old enough. I remember
I say all the time, my wife, we joke, like I have a pre-Google brain. Often we'll be sitting or something, and I'm like, oh, I wish I knew blah blah blah. She's like, Nick. I'm like, oh yeah, and then you can look it up on a
that.
phone, right?
Google it. Just Google it.
But you rely a lot on hand signals, and you write stuff down, and like you're asking for directions or how do I get where whatever you need,
Right.
and but you pick it up quickly because you're forced to.
Yeah.
But teaching English in Japan is kind of an interesting career, if you can call it that. Although I do know a couple guys that are still there, and they've been there 30 years, 35 years, something like that.
Wow.
So you can make a career of it, but primarily what they do is they rely on recent graduates. So young kids,
Yeah.
kind of 22 to 25, 26, kind of just getting started. And what you'll do is you get a 1 or a 2 year visa, and they sponsor you to do that.
Okay.
And there are these things called conversation schools.
Right.
I can't talk today. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eikaiwa, excuse me, that's the word, which is English conversation. But they have kind of like a preset curriculum in books. So like on one page you can imagine is all like the Japanese instructions and like Japanese. Okay, so the instructor will say this, and then you reply back with this, and then on the other side is all the English stuff.
Uh,
So they've kind of done all of the hard work for you. They teach you kind of a system to do this, and you're not
okay.
really teaching. It's really sitting with people and practicing conversation skills.
I
So
got
it's an interesting industry. There's a lot of shady stuff that can go on.
you.
And back in this, back in the 80s and early 90s, even up into the mid 90s, it was a lot worse
Yeah. Yeah.
than when I was there. But yeah, that's how you do it anyway.
Okay. So one of the things that a lot of times I talk to like some musicians, since I'm not a musician and I can't sing, I love talking to musicians and bands
Sure,
and
yeah.
singers. And so one of the things I love to ask, especially my guitar players and my bass players, and sometimes drummers and singers too, was like what was their inspiration? What got them like, pick up of that instrument and say, this is what I want to play because of so and so. What got you started in it?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the Back to the Future thing and Tim May, because that was, um, being a kid at 4 or 5 or 6, whenever that movie came out.
Mhm.
I remember that scene with Marty McFly playing guitar. He's playing Chuck Berry's
Right.
song, and I remember just going, "Wow, that's really cool. That's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I want to do that." And that was really the moment where, in my child brain, I was like, "I'm going to be a guitar player when I grow up." I
Right.
didn't really know that it was actually like a job or something that you could
Mhm.
do, but I was just like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of slept in my brain for another 4 or 5 years, because I didn't actually start playing till I was 12.
Okay.
But and like all good North American children, I think, like I played piano for a little while. I took lessons and I hated it. I actually started violin when I was
Same here.
3. My mom got me in what's something called the Suzuki Method.
I heard of that. I remember that.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
start you with, as a young kid, like 3 years old. Like basically, as long as you can stand up and hold a violin and a bow, you're old enough to start lessons.
Yes.
And it's the same kind of thing. Actually, I think that's probably where I drew a lot of my inspiration, because they don't focus on theory and like harmony and like all of the technical stuff. They focus on making music. So you start, like, your first lesson, you're playing a song, after 20 minutes when you're done. Um, but I started that when I was really little, and then I quit, violin by the time I think I was, 7 or 8, because again, I hated practicing,
Right.
which is stupid, because I listen back now. My mom saved like all of my like practice tapes and stuff, and I
Right.
listened to it, and I'm like, man, I was good. Like I was like, not like, I mean, for a kid, but like it wasn't like
Right.
scratchy, screechy, killing cat sounds. Like I was actually playing
Nice.
at a reasonable level, and I'm like, man, had I stuck with it, I probably would have been, really good. But ultimately, I quit, and then I picked up guitar when I was 12.
Okay.
Um, but around that time, like the early '90s was really kind of like a golden era, I think, for rock, metal, prog rock, alternative music. I mean, you had
Right.
a lot of shift happening with, punk and grunge, of course, coming to the forefront with Nirvana and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember when Metallica came out, the Black Album,
Right.
and I heard Enter Sandman, and I was just like blown away. I was
Yes.
like, I need to do that, you know.
Yes.
And I remember I used to, because I was always involved with band. Like I played clarinet and tuba and trumpet and stuff like that. And a lot of the music nerds, we all hung out at lunchtime in the music room. And one of my buddies was a bass player, so I actually kind of started on bass. He showed me how to play "Sunshine of Your Love" by Cream,
Oh, okay.
and then "Rock and Roll Part 2" by Gary Glitter, if you remember that song.
I do. Yeah. Mhm.
Super popular in hockey rinks
Yes.
around the time here. So I learned
Oh,
those two songs first. Sorry, I'll wrap up real quick.
no, you're good.
Um, but then it was like around that same time or shortly thereafter, Soundgarden came out with, I think it was Super Unknown, and
Mhm.
on that album was Black Hole Sun.
Yes. Love
And
it.
Kim
Love it.
Thale, the guitarist from that band, is very interesting dude. And of course, I mean, Chris Cornell and his songwriting, and like that whole band is just really, really cool. But I remember reading an interview back when you could still buy music magazines and they actually had interviews with artists as opposed to just like reams and reams and reams of ads.
Right.
And he said something to the effect of like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing. I just make sure I start and end on the right note, and then I just make a bunch of noise. And I was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah, I can do
And
that.
that was like the thing that like clicked in my brain. I was like, well, if he can do it and become a rock star and make millions of dollars, like I
Right.
could do it too.
Yeah.
And that was like the moment that I like clicked over.
So what made you go from wanting to be in bands and doing all that to say that, hey, you know what, I want to teach people how to play guitar.
Um, well, I mean, I've always not always taught, but like for the bulk of my career, because you know, depending on the level of musician that you are and kind of what echelon you reach into, unless you are, uh, you know, like a songwriter or a band member of a major label, major selling band, you're not, for the most part, going to make a full time income playing music. So you have to look into, you know, teaching, doing session work, maybe doing voice. And I actually have done kind of all of these things. Like I teach, I do session work. I've done voiceovers. I've done acting. You know, I've done tour support for many, many different artists. And I've also composed music for film and television. So you kind of just have your fingers in lots of pies. And I've always just loved sharing my joy of music. And I've always loved sharing music with other people. And it just so happens that, you know, teaching people guitar is, you know, something that can be, you know, if not, you know, walking around money, it can be actually lucrative if you put in enough, you know, work and time and effort, you know, whether it's at a physical studio at like a local music school, or, you know, online through YouTube, or, you know, all of the many avenues that have come up lately. You know, one of the, and I don't want to, this is not a political commentary or anything like that, but like one of the good things to come out of the illness over the past 2 years is a very big shift to at-home learning and at-home
Yes.
working and at-home access to information. And it's seen a real boom for guys like me that are at home teaching. And now you can find guitar, clarinet, trumpet, piano, bagpipes, like anything in any, like kazoo. If you want to take kazoo lessons, you can do that,
Right.
you know, online through a website or through, you know, free content on YouTube, and then freemium upgrades, right? So it's just made it very, very easy to do, you know. And I really kind of got out of touring around the time that I came home from Japan, actually.
Right.
It's like 2010. The biggest thing was I was over there. The music industry has a very, very short memory. And,
Yes.
you know, you're only as good as your last single or your last tour or your last session or whatever it was. So because I was away so long, everybody that I knew in the music industry in North America had moved on to other stuff. Like the bottom started to fall out like way back then, you know? And I kind of went, oh man, what am I going to do? And that's when I got involved with writing for film and TV. And I got involved with teaching again, like more heavily. So that it was kind of like a whole multitude of factors that all came kind of at the right time to just get me involved with
So
it.
you're also a number one bookseller on Amazon, right?
Yeah, number one seller. Had a bestseller for it was actually about 6 weeks last year. My book, Guitar Fretboard Memory Magic, has done very well, and it
So
continues to sell very well.
how'd you get into that and think, oh, I'm gonna write a book and put it on Amazon, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're number one of the top sellers on there. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, because of the way that I teach and because of um, the curriculum that I have in my head for students,
Mhm.
there's nothing available off the shelf. Like
Right.
I can't go to Hal Leonard or Cherry Lane or whatever and go, cool, we're going to stick with this book and we're going to work, you know, page one to whatever. It was always a case of, you know, with my students, I'd be like, all right, cool, I need you to go buy these 15 books.
Right.
And parents would be like, that's too much. You're only using, you know, 3 pages of this and 1 chapter from that and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but the rest of it isn't really useful for the way I teach. So
Right.
it was always kind of in the back of my mind, like one of these days I'm going to write my own sort of method book or method books.
Mhm.
And again, because of the illness and the you know, proliferation of at-home learning, I hooked up with a couple of guys that teach a course on all about how to write books and sell books on Amazon and yada yada. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. Now's the time. I'm gonna do a guitar book.
Right.
And since then, I've actually written 2 more. And I've got
Okay.
another one that I'll be putting out probably by August, maybe September of this year. Kind of get it ready and release it so that it's up and ranked and reviewed for Christmas, because that's always the big time.
The book sales,
for book sales, but any kind of sales, especially on Amazon. But
so is that like real hardback books, or is that ebooks?
They are available in ebook, and I actually have hardback copies as well. Okay. Well, not hardback, but like paperback.
Paperback, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so like, and here's like an actual.
Oh, very nice.
And I've got like, this is, it's full color. I got illustrations.
Yeah.
All that kind of good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I like that. That's pretty neat. That right there that's impressive to me, because I know how I'm not a very good writer, and if my wife is a writer, and she got enough material in her head, she could probably write 20 books. So it's always interesting to hear about that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you. Yeah, it's a fun process. I think as hard, quote unquote, as writing a book is, the actual hard part is getting it out, marketing it, hustling and talking to people to get the word out, and to get people to leave reviews on the products. Because, there's that old saying, right? Like a happy customer will tell one or two of their friends, but an unhappy customer will tell 12.
Exactly.
For the most part, if people buy my books and they like it, they never do anything. So you kind of, it sounds bad, but I kind of have to chase people down and say, hey, did you like the book? Could you leave it a review? Da, 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 da. So that's really, as a self-published author, that's really where the hard work comes in, is building up that community, connecting with customers, asking for the reviews, asking for referrals, that kind of thing.
It's the same theory, like in podcasting and YouTube and all the things that I do, photography, and my wife and I have a relationships podcast that we do. Same thing. You got to keep on people saying, hey, go check it out, tell people about it, and I think that's just a way, until you get to that point where you're just saturated everywhere that they can't miss you, then you're going to be hustling, and that's and actually some of that's the fun part. I love
totally
shouting out the podcast and different things that go on on Instagram and Facebook, and when I meet people, but it's never enough. I feel like that always like, so you're an entrepreneur expert, I would say.
Sure.
All your business,
I'll take it.
All your businesses that you're doing, and you got almost 7,000 followers on Instagram, and 3,000 on YouTube, and so you've got a good following going, and it just keeps probably building from that, right?
Correct. Yeah. You it's all front load. You have to just prime the pump or fill the funnel and get as many people as you can to see your stuff, hear your stuff, know your name, see the books, like whatever. It's funny too, because you look at it and go, cool, I had a number 1 bestseller, which is fantastic. But like, as well as that does for me, not now, but like when I was launching the book, like I gave away 3,000 copies.
Wow. Yeah.
Just to get the word out and get people reviewing it and get it to, hey, and of course I'm not giving out physical copies, I'm giving out ebook copies. But you've got to do a lot of that free promo and getting the name out there until, as you say, you hit that point of ubiquity where people know who you are, when you reach the level of, Rick Beato, in my world, who's, a massive music YouTuber, in your world. What's the guy's name in New York with the photography podcast?
I know Nick
Afro.
Yeah, I know. I watched Think Media. Think Media is one of the ones I watched him, and I just forgot his name, but I watch him a lot. Think Media. He's pretty interesting. And then of course Nick. I know I've watched Nick, and but anytime you're always learning from the guys, kind of thinking what can I do better? What can I learn?
Yeah, 100%.
But it's the same theory in music. Like I love going and seeing bands and watching bands and photography, I can't talk, photographing bands.
Sorry, I've given you my virus.
Yeah. But it's something that I have to constantly put out there that, hey, I'm doing this, and, showing it, because whatever photographs I took, whatever interview I did, 2 weeks later, if I don't, go back to it and say, hey, I did this, sometimes I got to reissue stuff that I've already done a month ago, a year ago, just to keep some people interested. Plus you're getting new people where I go everywhere, and you get in a conversation with somebody, oh, you do podcast, or you do photography, or you do videography, and then they want to know, and you're getting more people interested in seeing it. So it is definitely as an entrepreneur of sorts, it's definitely a constant, you're selling yourself. And
100%. as the kids say these days, it's the grind,
Yeah.
right?
That's
The
why we got
hustle or the
that's
grind.
why I got on Pod Match is I was like, I found somebody had sent me an email and said, "Hey, I like your podcast. Check this out." And I was like, "Oh, okay, listen." Then I was like, "Wow, these are actually people I can interview." Because right now I've been going to bands like in person, close around, and going, "Hey,
Sure, of
I
course.
love your music. I listen to you. Can I interview you?" And
Yeah,
then of course the newer bands starting out are always like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I love it." But some of the trying to contact some of these little not giant bands but medium bands
sure.
like it's crickets. I'm like,
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, like anything, right? It's all networking. It's who you know, and
Exactly.
sometimes it's that refer. The chance of you getting ahead with a one-to-one connection on somebody that you don't know is
Right.
next to
Super
zero.
super hard. Yeah.
But if their brother or their cousin or their friend or whatever knows you and it goes, oh hey, so and so's got a podcast, you should maybe talk to and you
Exactly.
never know where these connections will happen. So it's just it's a case of
So I have fun with the smaller bands because I mean
yeah,
a
totally.
lot of them have some of them have some fabulous guitar players that you're just like, how are you not like up with Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith, because
Totally.
you're just like amazing, and yet they're small because there's no way to really get. Sometimes there's a lot of saturation of stuff
Yes.
and TikTok and
Yeah.
Spotify and different things, but there's so much that's hard to narrow down sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to narrow down some of the bands that I really like, and now I'm kind of spreading out to talk about different kinds of music, even though I don't have any music talent. My talent is I like what I hear, I like what I
Sure.
see, and and I think that needs to be shouted out. So that's kind of what I do,
Yeah, totally.
so just like, okay, my wife, I keep telling her she needs to write some books, and I was telling her about your number one best selling author there, and our boys play guitar. I was like, man, they just need to get on there because they have the basic skills. They could
Yeah.
learn some more. So it's just always something that I see. I went through the podcast of people on there. I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And I see something. I'm like, oh, let me contact this person because
Totally.
that's something that's interesting to me, and that's what my podcast is about.
Sure.
Hopefully it's interesting to other people, but it's interesting to me. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, like anything, right? If you're looking at the digital space or the entrepreneurial space, it's like if you're not interested and passionate about it,
yeah,
there's no point because when you're getting started, there's no money.
yeah.
There's nothing.
I make
Yeah.
pennies on little things here and there, which is,
Yeah.
I have a real job where I'm a manager of a big box retail store. That's what I do in my real
Yeah.
time. But the rest of the time, I'm all music, photography, and
Totally. Yeah.
videography, whatever. I did
And
make my
then
first music video this last year, so
oh, nice.
I was super excited about that. That was something I wanted to do, and hopefully I can do some more of that. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of work, but
Yes.
so much
Yeah,
fun.
especially if you're writing, directing, producing, editing, doing all of
I did the whole
the
thing.
background.
Only thing I didn't do is write and sing the music.
There you go.
David Bell did that. He did a good job.
Nice.
But I got the video, and it was his first music video that he was actually in the video. So he was pretty
Okay.
excited about that. And I got to
Nice.
video him. But you did some acting. So what kind of acting did you do?
Uh
Anything
a
I
little
know?
bit of everything. I've never like had a starring role on anything like on TV
Right.
or anything like that. But I did kind of the usual route that people would do, right? Like high school theater, and then you do community theater, and then I got involved and I did some stuff like when I went to school in Boston, and so while I was down there, I ended up getting hooked up with a kind of like an extras agency or whatever. So
Okay.
I got to do some extra work on a couple films down there, and I
Nice.
happened to um, I got a couple like on-screen bit parts in like there was one called Boston Legal, and then there was another one called Crossing Jordan.
Okay. I've heard of
Like just
Crossing.
non-speaking stuff, but just kind of on-screen do it,
Yeah.
hand somebody a message or whatever. I can't
Yeah.
remember the
Hey,
specifics, but
it's all
um,
neat for sure.
yeah, and then the same thing kind of up here. I had an agent or an agency that I was working with that was doing mostly extra work,
Mhm.
and that kind of thing is fun, but it's really long days. It's very low pay,
Right.
and if you're again, it's one of those things like if you're not super passionate about it, it's
Yeah.
hard to justify sort of the cost because with extra work specifically, it's like you kind of start doing it and really the only thing that you're going to get out of it is more extra work,
Right.
right? Which isn't horrible. And I mean, I've got a friend in LA who makes a full-time living, like he makes 6 figures a year just doing extra work, but he's busy 7 days a week.
Yeah.
but he loves it. And
But he
that's the
loves
thing.
it. That's
He loves it. He goes to set. He just hangs out, plays cards. Okay,
yep.
call to set, whatever. He goes and walks down the sidewalk for 35 seconds or whatever, and that's it.
Over and over and over.
Yeah, right, exactly. But he loves it, and that's a great thing for him. But for me, I'm just like, I got too much other stuff going on
Yeah.
to commit a full day or 2 days or 3 days. Like I did I was an extra in the new Ghostbusters movie,
Oh, nice.
and that was like a 4 day shoot. I had to
Yeah.
be there at like 6 in the morning, and I was there till 8 or 9 at night, 3 days in a row. And
Yeah.
it's just like, ugh, because they could, I don't, whatever technical problems they were having with the car or whatever else, like they couldn't get the shot.
Yeah.
And so they kept trying and trying and trying and trying. And then it was like, okay, no, we're going to come back and we're going to start again tomorrow. Then that day, we got rained out for 6 hours or something. So
Yeah.
then we had to like shut production down. We
Mhm.
waited, and then we started again at, 5 p.m. So like these sort of delays. And I was just like, guys, I got stuff. Like I got students, I got, things to do.
Luckily nowadays you could probably take stuff like your iPad and stuff. You could do some work in between nowadays. Like back in
Sometimes, yeah. That set specifically, they confiscated everybody's laptops,
Oh,
cell phones thing because it was really, really hush hush.
So
We weren't even allowed to talk about it, like what
funny.
we were doing.
I got a funny story for you if you got a second.
Totally.
There was so back when I used to be a police officer for years, and they'd hire police officers for movies. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I guarded many different movie stars and got to do all that. But of course, I was in uniform, always standing there watching. Well, one day I was sitting there, and this is back when cell phones first came out. I had a little flip phone, and they're blowing up police cars, and I'm like taking pictures of it. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And I was like, but this looks really stupid. And I was like walking over there, looking behind the director's back and seeing what it looked like. I go, well, it looks way better at his screen than it did there. And he turned around, and he goes, don't put those photos anywhere. Don't sell those photos. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I put my phone up. Not needless to say, I found out later on the movie was called Grindhouse, and that was Quentin Tarantino who told me not to.
Oh, right on.
So, it's
Nice.
it's always neat to, I definitely had my share of getting to see all that, but
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in it in that sort of way. I was just a
Sure.
security, but
Nice.
it's all very neat to see for sure.
Yeah,
I wanna
it's
check
fun.
out
And
that, I
again,
want to check out that new Ghostbusters. I'll look for you in there.
yeah, I think like my legs and feet made it into the movie, like not
Yeah,
my
that's
face.
the way it usually goes. You spend 3 days and you get like a tenth of
Yeah.
a second in the
Yeah.
movie.
Because there's the camera's panning and Ecto One goes screaming by, and crowd of people scatter and everybody runs, and
There you go.
like the bottom of my left foot and the cuff of my jeans.
So do you
Um,
actually get do you get listed as an extra in the movies when they do that, or do they-
Usually, most extras, because I didn't have a name, right? So like
Right.
they don't
Oh, so only if
list,
you have a name in the
you know,
show.
the credits. Yeah, if you get like an on-screen thing where you actually appear doing an action, like waitress 1, waitress 2, like they
Right.
won't really even give you a name, but they'll give you like a title of your character.
Right.
But if you actually have lines, then yeah, you get listed. But most of that stuff, yeah, extra work usually is not credited at all, which is a bit of a bummer. But I mean, again,
So
that's kind of the industry and the way they've built it.
I got to do guard work, bodyguard work for Don Felder, the Eagles,
Oh yeah.
and so you being the guitar person, like who's your favorite guitarist that you would just be like you've either met or you'd like to meet, or just somebody that's
The
blows
list would
you
be
away?
shorter if you asked me who I haven't met. Um, no, my favorite guitar player. There's kind of a rotating list of a few of them, but my number one that I kind of come back to again and again is John Petrucci
Mm-hmm.
from a band called Dream Theater.
Okay.
And he's just a phenomenal player, really dedicated guy, really, really knowledgeable musician, phenomenal player, wonderful technician, and he's a great songwriter. I think a lot of players and a lot of people write Dream Theater off. They're like, they're just too technical. They're, interested in hearing themselves, wank around on guitars for 20 minutes and blah, blah, blah. But like, if you pull it apart, like, yes, they have that 100%.
Right.
Like I will, even for me, like I'm a diehard fan.
Right.
But like, even for me, sometimes I'm like, guys, enough with the instrumental already. Let's get back to the lyrics here. Come on.
Right.
But at the core of it, if you take away all of that, they actually write really good melodies.
Mhm.
They write really nice songs. And that's the heart, I think, of what music is all about. Like if you can get somebody to tap their foot, move their butt, hum along or whistle along with your song, you've
Yeah.
got a great song.
Exactly.
And then you can put whatever window dressing on top of it that you want. But he's my number one.
One of the favorite ones we saw lately that I was like just blown away with guitar playing was John 5.
Oh yeah, he's another killer player.
We saw him play this last August, and and I was just amazed at his I mean, he is super talented,
Yeah.
and so when we go see, of course, we love seeing our bands, you know, Korn, Slipknot,
Yep.
and all the different things that we love seeing. But you know, when you get something surprising as that, like my wife already knew about him, and I didn't really know much about him,
Right.
but just he was amazing. So, guitarist, you know, any kind of instrument that you can play well, maybe super well, like
Yeah.
I'm just blown away. I'm
Absolutely.
mesmerized by people with such talent. So
Did you see him like on his own? Was he doing a clinic
yes,
tour or like a
so
John Five thing?
he played with Rob Zombie the
Yep.
first night we saw him, and then the next day he actually played his own set, and so
Oh, okay.
we actually got that like real close and got to see him,
Nice.
and he did all kinds of little tunes, did some
Yeah.
country, some rocks,
Yeah.
and he just
Yeah, the cool thing about him, and I think a lot of it's no longer a secret, but he came up kind of in that country music scene, playing
yeah,
tellies and the kind of the whole Nashville thing,
right,
and that's where he really cut his teeth, and he's a phenomenal country picker.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
he played the banjo. He was playing the banjo.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's funny because a lot of guys, because much of my professional career in terms of touring, I actually made money playing country guitar.
okay,
But I've done rock, I've done show tunes, I've done pop music, and like
right,
kind of everything in between. But the all of the not all of, but many of the best players from the 80s, people would be surprised, like your Rats and your Poisons and your
right.
Warrants and so on and so forth. Those guys now all live in Nashville and they're session guys,
Yes,
you know?
yeah,
But I mean, it's like go where the money is, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
a good, a day playing guitar beats anything else as far as I'm concerned. So it's like,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna quit playing guitar. No, I'll keep playing guitar. Well,
yeah,
but you can make, and again, this gets back to loving what you do.
right,
If somebody gave me the opportunity to quit playing guitar today and go make $500,000 a year doing, I don't know, whatever, for some crazy reason, they're like, oh, you're going to be the CEO of, Exxon or something.
right,
Well, that'd probably be $3 or $4 million. But anyway,
right. Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that because that's not me and that's not guitar.
Not your passion. It's not what you love.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
kind of like me. I do what I do to pay the bills, but this is my passion. This is what I love to do. And one
Mm.
of these days I'll make enough money doing all that. I'll be the mini Joe Rogan maybe. So who knows?
Hey, there you go.
So anyway, so if you're interested in playing guitar and learning more about it, your website is the guitardojo.ca, and you have, and I guess an all access pass for $11.99.
Yeah, so it's guitardojo.ca,
Mm-hmm.
and the all access pass is basically the best way, or the easiest way I can describe this so that people understand, is it's kind of like Patreon without being Patreon.
Right,
So they can support me on YouTube. They always, all of that material is free, of course,
right,
but to get access to tabs, charts, extra lessons, outtakes, more bonus stuff, I have what's called the All Access Pass, and it's $11.99 bi-weekly, so it's $24 per month, but
okay.
that's
Oh, it's
Canadian
bi-weekly. I
dollars.
got it. Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, so it's actually about $19.96, I think, US. So it's
Yeah.
actually less than $20 a month.
Yeah, think
And
how much you pay for guitar lessons and stuff. You'd like,
yeah, well, this is it. So with that, you get access to all of the bonus materials that you would need if you're following along with the free lessons on YouTube. Then
right?
you also get a dedicated guitar learning app, which is all exclusive content, and
Mhm.
that is available on web browser, Chrome, so Android phones, and
Right.
soon, I'm still waiting on app approval, but soon it will be out on Apple as well. And then what else? There's once a week, or not once a week, excuse me, once a month live sessions where we actually do kind of just like this over
Right.
Zoom.
Okay.
We get together with whoever can make it. It's the third Sunday of every month,
Yeah.
and we have a live masterclass for an hour. People can bring their guitars. We can talk theory. We can talk technique. Maybe
Nice.
we just talk whiskey and cigars, whatever people want to chat about.
Right. Right.
But we do that. Plus, I've got there's backing tracks, and there's a bunch of other extra bonuses and stuff. But it's all on the website. They can check it out.
Okay. And that'll be like in my links below. I have the website and the YouTube and the
Yeah, and
and
part of the
all
app
that.
and part of the exclusive content as well is I have I've developed this thing called the Fretboard Infinity Loop System,
Mhm.
and this is what I teach my students, and this is how we can learn guitar and improve on guitar and get better without having to rely on theory and jargon and math, basically.
That's what I kind of understood listening to you. Yeah. So it's,
Yeah,
to me, it's an easier, like if you've got the base, like you said, if you got the basic chords down, you can do that. This is something
yeah,
that's really going to get you to that next level.
yeah,
And everybody, everybody wants to do the Metallica riffs and the AC/DC riffs.
Oh, totally.
And but to get to that point, you've got to have some help. There are so few people out there that can do it by ear, but that's very few. There's it's going to take a little bit of help, and so I think that you would be a great help for them. I like your Instagram page, and I love your YouTube page, and so I'll shout those out on all my stuff, and definitely appreciate your time sitting with me.
Absolutely.
Anything else to add from us, Nick?
Just thanks for having me. It's been a blast, and can't wait to see other great episodes that you've got coming up, and to watch your podcast grow and get bigger and better and reach more people.
I appreciate it. So Guitar Dojo, Samurai Fingers, all that good stuff, all those cool names. So definitely thanks, Nick. I appreciate your time, brother. And everybody, make sure you go out and check it out. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment on my YouTube and my pages, and also go see Nick's and do his also. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it.